Okay, hi everybody. Good afternoon. Today is Thursday. It is August 3rd. I want to take a few seconds to welcome all of my newcomers to my channel. I have a wonderful lady that left me a very beautiful message about my gardening video. As you can tell, I'm not in the kitchen. Today's going to be a twofer. It's going to be part gardening, part cooking, and it's not really going to be cooking. It's more of what I did yesterday, and you're going to see a change halfway in this video, and that's going to be my nails. I have a nail appointment in less than an hour, so my nail color will actually change from this color to a different color. So if you see that, you'll know why. Anyway, this wonderful lady said that she loves my gardening videos, and I thought we would take just a couple of minutes. I'm out front in my yard to talk about some things that you might want to think about when you are going to be planting, if you're going to be planting later in the season versus earlier. We're already in August, so this is starting to get to the end season here in the Midwest of growing. We have about maybe 2 more months before we'll have our first freeze, and flowers will not survive once you have a hard freeze unless you start planting the fall foliage. And the fall foliage would be your marigolds, your mums, and those are pretty much the plants. Now, I'm standing next to this big guy right here, and I'm going to kind of angle you. This is my rose bush. You might be wondering, well, if it's a rose bush, why isn't it not blooming? Well, this particular rose bush, as the one back in the house, I'm kind of pointing to him, the one that's really tall back there, those only bloom in the spring, and they will produce about 300 to 500 roses, and they're beautiful while they last. You want to plant those usually in the fall. Sometime in September, you can go earlier, end of August, beginning of September. You want to plant those in your gardens. But you also want to do is, especially if you live in a state that gets snow in the wintertime, is you want to make sure you protect them the first year. And you want to get a rose cover cone that protects the roses from from freezing to death, so that they can still grow. It protects the root system and the roses, and then when the spring comes and there's no chance of freezing, you remove the cover, and then they take off that summer, and usually they will bloom the first time around. Now, I thought I'd spend another few minutes talking about bird baths, and a lot of people have bird baths in their yard. This one happens to be stone. I've had it for quite a while. I fill my bird baths every day with cold water, but you may notice with your bird baths, if you have bird baths, that you will get some moss that grows. Every time that you clean or put fresh water in your bird baths, you need to get rid of that moss. That moss actually can produce the bacteria that is harmful for birds. So what I do, and I don't do this every day because on the stone it's a little bit different than if you have a plastic bird bath, but at least once a week you should scrub it with a scrubbing brush, spray it down really well, and then fill it with clean, cold water. Now, I don't have any bird feeders. I used to have bird feeders for my cardinals, my robins, my blue jays, all of those birds. I got rid of that because what was happening in my front yard is I was getting the seeds from the bird food that was starting to grow, and it was overtaking my front yard. So I don't feed the birds anymore. I wish I could start, and maybe at some point I'll start doing that again. Now, I know in previous videos we talked about the flower beds, and this is my flower bed. And I really, really, really need to get out here and start weeding it. The grass and the dandelions, I don't know if you can see this, the dandelions have just gotten so bad that it really needs to be weeded. And this fall, I'm going to make a huge change to this bed because some of my boards are now starting to rot over here. So we're going to work on that. Now, where I live in Illinois, we have a very, very evasive weed that's called, it has a proper name, and I will have to look up the proper name for it. But it is what they call a strangler. And I'm going to see if I can show you guys what it is. I think in my front box, although I may have pulled all of that out. Yeah, I don't have, oh no, I do. Okay, if you can see where my hand is right here, you see how that's growing? I'm going to give you guys a minute to look at that. What that actually does is once it gets to a plant, it starts to wrap itself around the plant. And it basically will strangle the plant. And if you have that in your garden, you need to remove it. But this is the biggest thing that you need to do. You need to remove it at the root system to kill the plant. Because if you just pull from the top and you leave the roots still in the ground or in the dirt, it will reproduce. And you have to repeat the process all over again. So make sure, always check all of your gardens. If you're growing vegetables in the back or if you're growing flowers up front, make sure you look for that plant because it's kind of hard to see until it starts to wrap around the plant. And I noticed my hostas, that it was wrapping around my hosta flowers, and I was able to grab it and remove it. But you want to do that because that will eventually kill any flowers or any trees if it gets around enough. Now, talking about trees, and I'm going to bring you guys to my lilac bush, and this is the brand new lilac bush that I planted earlier this spring. If you're planting new trees, make sure you give them enough water. And trees and shrubs need a lot of water to get them going so that they survive, especially, again, if you live in a state that has a winter. You want to make sure that they stay nice and hydrated so that they grow and establish their root balls before you get the hard freeze. And I've been doing that. Fortunately, here in the Midwest, we've had rain, but we had a lot of rain in the month of July. I will say that. I've been watering pretty much every day that it's been hot, especially if you don't have rain on the daily or every other day or even every third day. Our next chance for rain, and I know in a earlier video I said we were supposed to get rain Wednesday. Well, that never happened. We may get a brief shower Friday, which would be tomorrow. I still am going to water everything today. Our next really big chance for rain is Sunday. So make sure that you water things throughout the week if you're not getting rain. Now, things like this, and this is my big lilac bush, and I've had him for almost 8 years now. And you can tell he's pretty big. I'm going to stand by comparison. He's actually a little bit in places taller than I am. He doesn't need as much water. I still, every now and then, will give him water. But once they're established like this, you can cut back on how much water you give them. You want to make sure if you don't have rain or you don't have a lot of rain that you once in a while water them. Now, these fire bushes have been here for over 20 years. They're well established. I don't water those anymore because they have their own system of protecting themselves from needing water, so I don't have to do that. Now, you might notice that this has got grown out of control, as has the one on the other side of my garage. When is a good time to trim those? Well, I like to do those in the fall versus the summer, especially if you have birds that like to nest in them. I don't like to disturb any nesting birds, and I usually don't do them in the spring when they're like this. I wait till the fall foliage comes and then I trim them. And that's okay to do, especially if your bushes have been around for years. You can definitely go ahead and trim them in the fall. And you just want to kind of shape them. You don't want to go too crazy with them, because if you go nuts and you decide you want to make a much shorter bush, that actually can kill your bushes. So always keep that in mind when you're doing any sort of trimming. Now this is another rose bush, and you can tell he has a couple flowers left. Well, that one's actually starting to die. But rose bushes, when should you trim your rose bushes? I usually also do that in the fall. You can do that in the spring, and a lot of times what I do in the spring, before it really warms up and we have nice spring days of weather, is I look to see if there are any part of the rose bush that has died off, that has turned brown, that will no longer produce a flower. Then you want to go ahead and prune your rose bush. You can do your rose bush all through the summer months if you need to, but again, don't get crazy when it comes to trimming your rose bush, because sometimes if you cut too much, they won't produce flowers for the first year. And my neighbor is an example. She did have to cut her rose bush. It is growing, but hers hasn't produced any type of flower. So, and everything else, you just want to make sure that your pots are staying moisturized, and that your flowers have enough food and water. When do you want to fertilize your gardens? Well, you want to fertilize them when you first plant them. It's okay if you want to do a little bit of Miracle-Gro or a little bit of growth throughout the season. You can definitely do that. You just don't want to put too much growth food. Here in the Midwest, we have a relatively short growing season, so it takes a little bit of time for things to grow. And I'm coming into the garden, which is the prime example of my vegetable garden. And I'm going to turn you guys around. Actually, I'm going to stop the video. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back in my vegetable garden. A lot of times if I say we, what I mean is my husband and I. On my cooking channels, a lot of times I'll say I, because then I solely am doing the cooking. If he contributes by helping prepare something, I'll use we. So if you get confused about that terminology, that's why I use that. So our vegetable garden is doing pretty good. And I know I just did a video on the vegetable garden, and I do need to water. You can tell this is telling me that it needs more water, is when the plants just start to wither down, and you can see all the green beans in the back. And I'm going to do a special video later on. Oh, and something new got to one of my zucchini plant flowers. There's another flower on there. But we're going to talk about when to harvest your garden later on. I'm not going to do that today, and my dogs are all out here. That's another reason we're not going to do this. But you need to water your vegetable gardens at least every day that you don't have rain. Now, if you have rain forecasted, like I said, Sunday is supposed to be a rainy day for us. I'm not going to have to water because the Mother Nature will do that for me. And there has been new developments in my garden, and I figured while I'm here, I'm going to talk about that. And hopefully you guys can see this. My tomatoes are now starting to turn red. They're starting to go into an orange color. They're still not ready to pick, but I would say within the next 3 to 4 days, I'll have, so far I have 4 that are about to turn. I have quite a few tomatoes, and we will be making sauce out of those once they're picked. I'm also going to pick some basil and maybe do a fresh mozzarella basil salad. So I'll post that for you guys later when we do that in the season. Now, when do you want to water your boxes? Well, you want to make certain plants, like these eggplants, they don't like to be soaked in water. So if your soil is moist, you can go ahead and skip watering them. Now, today we're going to be well into the 80s, almost 90 degrees. So I'm going to wait until much later today and see how dry they get throughout the day. If they get dry enough throughout the day, then I'll go ahead and I'll give them some water so that they will survive. And you want to do that with all of your pots, especially if you have flowers in pots, or you have vegetables in pots, or you have herbs in pots. You want to make sure that they have plenty of water, and water them according on how they like. Not all herbs like to be submerged in water all the time. Some of them need to go into almost a full dry soil and then go ahead and water it. Now, that brings me to the next question. When do you want to bring your plants in? Well, since it's still August, you can definitely leave your plants out. You can leave your plants out as long as the temperatures don't dip below 32 degrees. Some plants don't like it when it starts to get in the 40s. They can pretty much all handle 50-degree weather with little to no problem. When it starts to get below 50 degrees, however, that's when you want to start thinking about bringing in your plants. Now, we're not talking about plants that you have planted in soil in the ground. Those plants will either die, or if you've planted annual plants that annually come back, those will come back next season. Unfortunately, you can't really dig those up to save them. But all of your pot plants you can bring into the house. Just make sure that you give them enough sun and you give them the water that they will need to keep growing. I'm gonna let my dogs in, and I'm getting ready to go for my nail appointment, so I'm gonna wrap up this video. It's kind of a long video, and I'm glad you guys are liking the gardening videos. When I come back, we're gonna pick up the jam, the peach slices series, and we're gonna wrap all of those up. They're all made, and they're all still underneath the cover over here. Like I said, this is gonna be kind of a combo gardening with Joel / cooking with Joel video. They still need a little bit of time, especially considering the blueberry jam didn't finish until almost 9 o'clock last night was when I finished everything, and everything has now been canned. Now what we're going to do is just check all of the jars and get them ready to be put away. Like I said, when I come back, I'm going to explain a few things. I was editing all of my videos, and thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for putting up with me. I threw 4 videos at you guys today that were almost an hour and 15 minutes long. But I got through all of these peach slices a little bit. We touched a little bit on the peach jam and the blueberry jam. And I'm gonna, when I come back, I will explain some things that worked for me, some things that didn't, and some things that you need to think about when you're canning vegetables. Now, our next canning series is going to be bread and butter pickles. I need to get my cucumbers, or my pickling pickles. I need to get those ready to be canned for bread and butter pickles. I'm going to teach you guys those recipes. I'm going to take the next couple of days off. I'm going to take today off and tomorrow off. Tomorrow my husband has a doctor's appointment, so I'm going to take tomorrow off so I can go to the doctor with him. And I'm not really going to be cooking, but I do have some very, very exciting cooks coming up, and I'm going to share that with you in a little bit when I get back from having my nails done. So thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for viewing my channel, for leaving me wonderful comments. Please post down below what you guys are growing, if you guys do flower beds, if you do a combination of flowers and vegetables. If you're looking to plant trees and shrubs, if you're going to do rose bushes, let me know what you're going to do. Or if you're getting ready for the fall season that's coming up, are you guys going to plant mums in your gardens to change up from the summer plants? I'll be excited to hear from that. So thank you so much again. Tune in next time for a fun Gardening with Joel video. And of course, come back every day and watch my Cooking with Joel videos.